Greene for 5 minutes.
Thank you, and thank you, Chief Modlin. Thank you for Chief Chavez for coming in and speaking with us today. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about unaccompanied minors. I'm sure this is a very serious situation that you're familiar with. Under the Trump administration, with Title 42, can you tell me when you had unaccompanied minors, what would happen to those children?
Thank you for the question, ma'am. So before or after Title 42, so my point is Title 42 did not affect how we deal with unaccompanied children. We do not expel unaccompanied children. So when unaccompanied children are encountered, they're brought into our custody. We make sure they get any medical attention they need, showers, change of clothes, all of that. And then they're turned over to HHS's ORR within 72 hours.
And that's how it's handled right now under the Biden administration?
That's how it's been handled for as long as I've been handling unaccompanied children, ma'am.
And were they sent back to their home countries before the Biden administration?
Not to my knowledge. But again, ma'am, what I would say is, again, that's much further down the process than where the Border Patrol is. So once we encounter them, whether it was 3 or 4 years ago or yesterday, they're brought into our custody, assessed, and then eventually turned over to ORR. Where they end up, that's much longer after we have them.
Many of them were sent back to their home countries before under Trump's administration. I want to talk to you a minute about, are you familiar with, there was a 20-year-old autistic woman in Maryland who was strangled to death by an illegal alien here, 17-year-old MS-13 gang member. Under the program as it is right now, many of the MS-13 gang members are being brought in the country as unaccompanied minors. They're very young. They're under 18, and then their numbers have doubled, maybe tripled in our country. What have you seen with that?
Again, ma'am, thanks for the question. My personal experience in the 2 years I've been in the Tucson sector, I'm unaware of any significant amount of MS-13 gang members within the unaccompanied children population.
Well, how are you able to know if they're gang members or not? Do you have an MS-13 gang database that you're able to search them up in there and somehow find out if they're gang members or not?
So, ma'am, with our agents that have a significant amount of training and experience, there are things they look for. There are certainly, as you know, you've probably seen photographs of MS-13 gang members with significant amount of tattoos. Sometimes it's simply an admission of it. Sometimes it may be other things that trigger agents to start questioning.
Right, but Chief Modlin, they may not have had all their tattoos yet, being that they're young and under 18. Being 15 or 16-year-old. As a matter of fact, they are coming in the country at a much higher rate. That's why this 20-year-old autistic woman was killed, because of an illegal alien, a 17-year-old MS-13 gang member, and she'd be alive today if our border was secure. One of my Democrat colleagues was talking about the wall as if it doesn't work. I assure you that the Democrats believe in walls because they've erected one around the Capitol today because President Joe Biden is delivering his State of the Union address to the country. Walls do work, and we want you to have a wall as one of the toolkits in your box to stop the illegal invasion into our country that's occurring every single day. Are you aware of how many fentanyl deaths that the percentage increase in my home state of Georgia?
Ma'am, I'm unaware.
Well, I'll just let you know, fentanyl deaths have increased to 350% in Georgia. We're not a border state. We're not along the southern border, but fentanyl deaths have gone up 350%. Are you aware of how much money the Mexican cartels make selling fentanyl, or what their industry makes?
Ma'am, again, thank you. So what I do know is that the cartels are making billions, and whether it's fentanyl, whether it's moving people across the border, everything's a commodity to them. And to your point earlier, you not being a border state, it has been said many times, and I completely agree, that every state is a border state, ma'am. Everything that happens on the border affects the entirety of the country.
Absolutely, and that's why a young lady in Maryland should be alive today, because our border should be secure. It's a $20 billion industry, the cartels have, $20 billion. And that's because our border is not secure. Now, we appreciate the job that you do, both of you, and we're thankful for you, but we are completely against the policies of the Biden administration that's allowing the murder of over 300 Americans a day from fentanyl, allowing the Mexican cartels to illegally make over $20 billion, and allow our country to be invaded every single day. And I yield back the remainder of my time. I want you to know that in 2020, there were 4.8 thousand pounds of fentanyl seized by CBP. But in 2021, fiscal year 2021, it increased to 11.2 thousand pounds of fentanyl was seized by the CBP. That is a direct result of Biden administration failure policies. Now, here we are in to date, fiscal year 2023, they have already seized 12.5 thousand pounds of fentanyl. The Biden administration is failing this country by not protecting our border and securing our border and stopping Chinese fentanyl from being brought into our country illegally by the cartels, and people are dying every single day because of it. Fentanyl deaths have doubled between 2 years. From April 2019 to April 2021, those are the statistics we have. Fentanyl deaths doubled from 32,754 to 64,178. This is a complete failure. I want you to know it's affecting every single state in the country. In Georgia, fentanyl deaths have gone up by 230%. In rural Northwest Georgia, my district, the 14th district, we are up 350%. Fentanyl does not discriminate on your skin color, your gender, your politics. Fentanyl kills everyone. It kills police officers, first responders, and tragically, fentanyl is now the #1 cause of death of young Americans ages 18 to 45. And this is unforgivable. The Biden administration is responsible for this, and they have blood on their hands because they refuse to secure our border. Today we have a witness with us, Ms. Kiesling. I just want to tell you I'm so sorry from one mother to another for the death of your 2 sons that died from fentanyl poisoning that should never have happened. Should never have happened to you. It should never happen to any family. It happens to families at home where I live. It happens to pretty much everyone we know. And I want to ask you, first I want to thank you for being brave to come here and share your grief with our committee. But Ms. Kiesling, would your sons be alive today if our government would secure our southern border?
The year Caleb was born, 2000, there were 20,000 drug-related deaths. And the year they died, it was 5 times as many. And I appreciate you using the term fentanyl poisoning because that's what it was. It wasn't an overdose. They had no idea that they were doing anything that could kill them. And it's because fentanyl got into this country. I heard this man over here from the Cato Institute, talk about, well, it's because of demand. What I'm hearing him say is they asked for it. What the hell? Seriously? Are you kidding me? We need to protect our children. They didn't ask for that. This wasn't demand that they wanted the fentanyl. They didn't want fentanyl. They thought they were getting Percocets. Okay? He's absolutely clueless. Like, total disconnect from what's happening. And to say, oh, let's just give them strips or let's give them rehab. Well, you know what? My kids got my son Caleb went to federal rehab. It was a flop house. It wasn't real rehab. You're wasting your money where you're sending it. I'm telling you, it's a waste of money because it wasn't real rehab. And the government paid for their drugs under COVID. They encouraged them not to stay home. All these young people in our support groups, we all talk about it, how they paid for their drugs with the federal funds under COVID that gave them incentive not to work. Healthy young people.
Thank you, Ms. Kiesling. This government has failed you, and it's failing American families. And it's failing, most of all, it's failing our children and our young people. Thank you very
The
much.
lady's time has expired.
Gentleman yields. I now recognize the gentlelady from Georgia, Mrs. Greene.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, gentlemen, for being here today and engaging in this important discussion with us. It's a necessary discussion, and again, we are outraged and angered that our Democrat colleagues didn't see the importance of our national security and our border security, even to be important enough for them to get on an airplane and come down here and be here for this hearing. Shame on them. Shame on them for not coming and listening to you and engaging in this important discussion about how to protect our country and protect our border. During Trump's administration, the entire administration, there were approximately 2,437,856 alien encounters in that 4 years. During the Biden administration, to date, which is just over 2 years, there have been 4.7 million alien encounters just in his time as president. That is double. It has doubled in just that short amount of time. Now, under the Trump administration, there were 581,257 gotaways during 4 years. During the Biden administration, to date, it is 1.3 million gotaways. This is an incredible increase, and it is not by mistake or accident. In your opinion, each of you, what are the policy changes that have happened to contribute to this invasion of our country? Mr. Cabrera.
I think first you have the parole. We're paroling people into the United States instead of mandatory detention, mandatory removal. The talk of ending remain in Mexico and then putting it right back on a couple days later, that had some issues. Before we could send everybody back, and after Biden restarted it, we could only send certain folks back. I think those are the two biggest ones. If we continue to let people come in, they're going to continue to come in. It's just like with a kid. If you let them do certain things and you tell them no, but there's no consequence to it, they're going to continue to test those limits, and that's what we're seeing. We can tell them all day long that if you come, we'll send you back. But once we release them into the country, they call home, they put it on Facebook or Instagram or whatever they use, and more people come because regardless of what I say or the commissioner or whoever, their brother, their sister, their cousin told them how to do and how to do it and how it's done, and so they do it.
Open door policies. Sheriff Coe.
Well, I agree 100%. Because of the lack of consequences, they just continue on. That's why we started prosecuting for criminal trespass, and we've seen it effective because we're pushing the foot traffic into another county. We're still catching them, but not as many, but we're pushing them to another county. I hate to do that, but that's the only way I can protect my county. So there has to be consequences.
That's right. Colonel McCraw.
Agreed with Agent Cabrera.
Thank you. It is my opinion, and I have co-sponsored legislation to impeach Secretary Mayorkas for his failure as Secretary of Homeland Security to do his job to protect our country, and in not doing his job to enforce policies or bring policies under the Biden administration that allow our good men and women of the Border Patrol and ICE to do their jobs. And I think that's something that should be done, definitely. But I'd like to talk to you for a second, Mr. Cabrera, because you said something that struck me, and I want to acknowledge this. You stated in your opening testimony that you told your wife that you didn't take this job for the money, because your job, you don't get paid a lot of money. Border Patrol agents don't get paid a lot of money. As a matter of fact, men and women in all law enforcement don't get paid a lot of money, but you do such an important job, and I thank you for that, and you're the right man for the job. So I just wanted to say that to you. But also, I looked it up while the discussion was going on. Secretary Mayorkas makes $200,000 a year in his job while he's failing to do his job. And I'm a business owner, and that's what I did all my life before I became a member of Congress. And I believe in accountability as well, and that's what you gentlemen just spoke of, is accountability. And I believe in accountability to people that are getting paid to do a job. And Secretary Mayorkas certainly should not get paid the big salary that he gets to put men and women in the Border Patrol, their lives in danger like they are every single day. In the hearing before this one, or actually this morning, it was revealed to us that an explosive device was found by Border Patrol on January 17th. But it didn't seem to be reported to very high levels. And I was just wondering, had you heard about an explosive device being found in January?
Absolutely not. Actually, the first I learned of it was this morning, watching the live stream in the room down the hall.
Right. And so that, to me, that's the cartels taking it to a whole different level that puts our Border Patrol men and women in extreme danger. And you mentioned, how many suicides did you say there were among Border Patrol agents?
17.
Out of 18,000?
16,000.
Okay.
Well, 19,500, including
19.
Supervisors and management.
Out of 19,500, there were 17 suicides. And you said there were how many suicide under New York?
30 out of 35,000 officers, 4.
Four. That shows the tremendous difference in stress and emotional toll on Border Patrol agents with a much higher suicide rate, and that again is devastating. Is there, what do you see could be done for Border Patrol agents to make their jobs easier, less frustrating, and for them to be able to accomplish what they need to do on a daily basis?
So if you could answer as quickly as possible, I appreciate that.
We just need to get out there, let us do our jobs the way we were trained to do it, enforce the laws as they were written, and let the law supersede the policy as opposed to the policy superseding the law.
Thank you.
Well said by a paratrooper. All right. Gentleman yields. The chair recognizes Ms. Greene from Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chief Ortiz, for being here today. Thank you, Mr. Kagan. I appreciate the jobs that you do, as well as the men and women that work under you. They have very difficult jobs, and we are so appreciative of them. But I'm going to be very honest with both of you. After listening to all of this, I am so angry. I cannot believe the incredible failure of our federal government and to the American people. And also to the Border Patrol agents, ICE agents, the jobs that they do and how incredibly difficult their jobs are based on the failed policies that they are forced to operate under. It is absurd. I live in Georgia. My state is not a border state, but let me inform you of some of the things that we're dealing with. Here in Georgia, fentanyl-involved deaths has increased by over 230% since Biden has taken office. In my district alone, we have had fentanyl-involved deaths increase by over 350%. I can tell you right now, the policies do not work. And we are sick and tired of our young people dying, our emergency responders getting poisoned by fentanyl. This is unacceptable. Chief Ortiz, are you aware that there was an explosive device found by Border Patrol agents on January 17th in an area called No Man's Land, and there's surveillance of who put it there? And guess what? It wasn't Americans, it was cartels. Are you aware of that?
Thank you, Congresswoman, and good to see you again. I will tell you that some of this information that I receive in a confidential skiff, so I'm going to be a little hesitant of briefing what I know and what I don't know with respect to some of those, an event like that.
I understand, Chief Ortiz, but I'm not going to be confidential because I think people deserve to know. Our Border Patrol agents should not be in those type of conditions where they are at risk of being blown to pieces by the cartels, who, by the way, are criminals, and they should be treated as such. As a matter of fact, I've co-sponsored legislation to declare war on the cartels because they are definitely declaring war on us, the American people, and our Border Patrol agents, and I've had enough of it, and I know Americans have had enough of it. Mr. Kagan, are you aware of such explosive device being found by Border Patrol agents?
I am not.
Mr. Kagan, since you have to deal greatly in all the horrific drugs that are poisoning Americans every day, let's talk about kids for a little bit. We were just told this morning that kids aged 13 to 17 are being recruited by the cartels, dangerous cartels, even MS-13, and they are being used to smuggle drugs, traffic drugs into our country, having it taped across their bodies. They're also recruited because many of them have U.S. citizenship because they've come in our country, and they're used to drive and smuggle humans and drugs back and forth across our border. Can you elaborate on that?
Thank you, and good to see you as well. The cartels are very good, and transnational criminal organizations are very good at going after vulnerable populations. You see that with the immigrants that are coming up. You see that with, as you're talking about, kids. This is something that has gone on for a long time. I worked in Mexico for 4 years. So here, seeing cartels, seeing TCOs go after vulnerable children and vulnerable populations is something that definitely happens. They will go after any vulnerable population in order to move their drugs north and or move their guns and profits south.
Yes,
so,
but
yes,
Mr. Kagan, let me interrupt you for a minute. This has been a large increase in just the past 2 years in how many teenagers and even children are being used to traffic drugs. The increase is there, and it's showing that the policies are failing.
I'm sorry, ma'am, I didn't catch the question.
I said there's been a large increase in children being used trafficking drugs into our country and being recruited by gangs, and it's just happened in the past few years, and the policies are failing. So what change needs to be made?
I don't have data on the increase in children being used. My time that I'm speaking about goes all the way back into 2007 to 2010 when I was in New Mexico. So I don't have any comment on increase or decrease. So that's not, as an investigative arm of DHS, not here to focus on.
Well, I can tell you right now, I have the statistics. Deaths of 350% in the past 2 years in my district from fentanyl. That's proof that the increase is there. And we are devastated.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be disingenuous. There is definitely increase in fentanyl coming here. There's definitely, we all have seen the increase in death in children. I was just on a panel a few months ago sitting next to 3 parents who had lost their children. It's the hardest time that I've ever had to testify in my entire life.
Then I think, you know what I think, you guys, and I'm going to be really honest with everyone, I could care less about politics at this point. All I care about is policies put in place that allow our great men and women to do their job to secure our country. And our country is not safe, and our people are being poisoned by fentanyl every single day. I cannot believe it's the #1 cause of death of people from ages 18 to 45. That is unacceptable. And I think that we need to all be honest, and who cares about who our boss is and who cares about who's in office? We need to be honest and forthcoming about the changes that need to be made to secure our country, because America is all of our home. It doesn't matter about Republican, Democrat, or who cares. It's everybody's home. And what I would like to see done is real frank conversation about what to do to fix this problem. Thank you very much.
The gentleman.
Okay. Okay, do I have 5 minutes? Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My amendment would add to the bill a requirement for Customs and Border Protection to report to Congress on the findings of its investigation into the circulation of an unofficial CBP challenge coins that depicted the mistreatment of Haitian migrants in the Del Rio, Texas, in September of 2021. These coins contain hateful images and slogans glorifying violence and making inappropriate use of a department seal. They reference the Haitian invasion and use these mottos: U.S. Border Patrol, whipping ass since 1924, and Horse Patrol Unit, deflecting allegations for years. That anyone would think that making light of the treating or using of force against vulnerable migrants is funny is despicable. And if it turns out that someone within CBP was making and selling these coins, then they are undermining the agency's mission and should be disciplined. Former CBP Commissioner Magnus stated, quote, "Those who make or share these deeply offensive coins detract and distract from the extraordinarily difficult and often life-saving work Border Patrol agents do every day across the country," unquote. The DHS Office of Professional Responsibility investigated the underlying incident and released its findings in August of 2022. It found that the agents involved used unnecessary force to drive migrants back across the Rio Grande. However, CBP has yet to disclose any findings regarding the challenge coins, despite Ranking Member Thompson's repeated inquiries. This amendment would require CBP to come forward with their findings surrounding the challenge coins. I urge my colleagues to adopt this amendment because these coins with the hateful images and slogans on them have no place in a professional law enforcement agency. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Does the gentleman insist on his point of order?
Mr. Chairman, I will withdraw the point of order.
Gentleman withdraws. Does anyone wish to speak on the amendment? The chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Payne, does this fall under the purview of Mr. Mayorkas? I mean, does this need to live at our level? It's more of a question.
I'm sorry?
Isn't this under the purview of Secretary Mayorkas and his responsibility to dig into his organization and provide us with information? I think my question is, why does this live inside the border bill?
Well, sir, this is an oversight issue, and it needs an answer to be answered to Congress in the matter.
Well, from what I understand, the horse patrols were they were exonerated from all wrongdoings.
Is that the case?
I just feel it unnecessary that Congress is going after them again if the findings already relieve them of any wrongdoings. But and I'm hanging on every word you're saying, sir. I just think that a cabinet member would be responsible for this inside his organization.
Right. And
instead of weaponizing us.
And well, it's not weaponizing. We have oversight. If you recall, through many of these hearings that I've seen in terms of
I'm on your side.
Right? No,
this is
exactly because it's a heinous issue that these coins were even created. I think there's a picture of it.
There's a picture behind you. I saw it.
Okay. That has been very troubling.
Does the gentleman yield for a question?
Yes, sir.
That's not an official coin.
Right.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I object to the depiction and the insinuation, the presentation to America that that's some kind of an official coin.
No,
above Border Patrol. That kind of inflammatory imagery like that being presented in this committee during a markup. I yield back.
So does the gentleman say that they don't exist?
One second, Mr. Payne. I think.
Are we saying that it doesn't exist?
No, sir. I think his question was, in your statement, I believe you said it had the official CBP.
It had the official CBP signal, but I didn't say it was an official coin. I did not say it was an official coin. It had the official insignia on it, but I did not say it was an official coin.
Okay.
Mr. Luttrell, you yield?
Yes, sir.
I know we're 11 hours into this, but we have over 5 million migrant encounters, 1.4 million known gotaways, migrant deaths, fentanyl, and we're talking about challenge coins. I mean, every law enforcement agency that I've been a part of or have known, they deal with this stuff internally. The fact that we're discussing this at a committee hearing in front of the House of Representatives is absolutely ridiculous. And the fact that Customs and Border Patrol, what it sounds like is they handled it on their own, you're just not happy with the results. I'm sorry, I find that all the way into this, we're working in a bipartisan fashion to try to find results. The Republicans have delivered. We've come up with a plan. Obviously, there's time for us to debate, time for us to talk, but the fact that now, 11 hours into this, we're talking about challenge coins is absolutely ridiculous.
Yes, it's a challenge coin that depicts.
I yield back my time.
It was challenge coin depicting the whipping of migrants. That's what the challenge coin was, sir.
Mr. Luttrell, is still your time.
I object to that.
Mr. Luttrell, can I just? Wait. All right,
Chairman, I ask it to
Wait, it's my time. All right, bring it back to center, y'all.
Stricken.
Everybody, take a wrap off. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Mr. Chairman, I object to the gentleman's language insinuating that there was some conclusion that there was, that the CBP agents on horseback.
Point of order, has the gentleman been recognized?
We're whipping.
Let's have order.
Let us put the picture back up.
Let's have order right now. I will recognize gentlewoman, Ms. Clark.
Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last word. That's a reality. That right there is a reality. It's not fake. It is not official, but used in official federal insignia. On it, it says whipping ass since 1924. On the other side, it says Horse Patrol Unit reflecting allegations for years. There you see a U.S. Border Patrol agent with a whip in his hand, whipping a Haitian migrant. Now, we all saw the pictures of this. This is not something that was made up or fabricated. But among agents, this is being circulated. This is being circulated. Now, it may not mean much to you. What I'm saying is, what does that mean about the psyche of the individual who finds that as a joke? And yes, or memorabilia. I don't want to encounter an agent that is carrying that challenge coin, whether it's made official or unofficial. And neither should any of us in this room. And what we're saying is, we want to get to the bottom of how these coins were made and circulated. We have not been satisfied with the answers because we haven't been given any answers. That is what this amendment is about. That is a reality. And that has been circulated in a federal agency. Now, you know, everyone can have their opinions about this. I am grateful to the gentleman from New Jersey for bringing this to the attention of the American people, because they're going to encounter more Haitian migrants, given the circumstances in Haiti. And knowing that there are individuals within this organization that would find that as a joke is a scary proposition for many of us. With that,
Ms. Clark,
would you like me to yield? I'll yield some time.
I don't know how much time you have left until I get.
I can be brief, and if the clerk will instruct us on the time, I'm more than happy to obviously oblige. But I'll be short on it. As Mr. Pfluger likes to say, let's just level set for a second. This is a briefing. just a briefing with the commissioner. And so the commissioner comes before us, we have oversight ability, and we have a better understanding of what happens. Maybe nothing comes of it, maybe something does. So it's a briefing. And I think we can understand why people would have the reaction of seeing this on a coin. And it's not nothing to a lot of people, and calling for a briefing I think is a totally acceptable use of this committee's jurisdiction. And I think that's just, I would just put it there, and if you don't want to vote for the amendment, don't. Some of us may want to support it, so we can just have that additional information. We can help it, let it guide us in knowing a better sense of what happened. That is all. And it's not my time to yield, so I have to yield back to my colleague, Ms. Clark.
This is a border security bill. That is an issue of border security for many people who will be encountered at our border.
Ms. Clark, will you yield?
I will, Mr.
To Mr. Mendez's point, I think you're absolutely right. That's asking Mr. Mayorkas to come in and hearing. I think it's the bill language that was, have we even addressed this with Mr. Mayorkas? I don't know that, I'm really asking the question.
Just, if I may, I think we're sort of in a triangle here.
Mr. Payne, do you know the answer to that, sir?
The chairman has raised it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I yield back, Ms. Clark.
I'm sorry, the ranking member, I'm sorry. Past history.
I don't know what the time is, but Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. I now recognize the gentlelady from Georgia, Ms. Greene.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to remind everyone on this committee that we swore an oath to uphold the Constitution, and that includes the freedom of speech. And so if anyone makes a coin that is offensive to you, then it may be offensive, but it's also someone's freedom of speech to make that coin. And everyone has admitted here that they don't know if it's an official coin. No one knows it's an official coin. As a matter of fact, you're admitting it's not an official coin, not official. So we could talk about things that offend everyone. I could pull up my Twitter comments and talk about how offensive the speech in my Twitter comments are, and I could make a poster and show it to you all and talk all about it all day long. But as far as a coin that is not an official coin, and we're talking about taking legislative action on the Homeland Committee on an unofficial coin because it's offensive, is absurd. It's absolutely absurd. And I'll go further. I thank God for the Border Patrol agents that ride horses and protect our border, because they ride in terrain that probably most of you have never even been in. They ride in terrain that is difficult, and they protect us. We have had 5.5 million people attempt to enter this country in the past 2 years. Human trafficking, drug trafficking, sex trafficking. People from, let's remind everyone again, over 170 countries around the world. And we want to bring up an unofficial coin and talk about it?
Will the gentlelady yield?
No, I will not yield. I will not yield because,
I know why.
Yeah, you want to, I'll tell you why, and you're interrupting me. It's absurd. And it's offensive to the American people that pay taxes to our federal government to defend our borders, not to pay taxes to have a welcoming committee at the border for anyone and everyone who just wants to come into the United States, including terrorists, including criminals, including people that came out of jails or insane asylums from foreign countries, smuggling drugs. Let's talk about all the angel families in this country who have had family members murdered by illegal alien crime. And we want to talk about an unofficial coin? I'm telling everyone, I object to this amendment because it's absurd, an unofficial coin, and it hurts people's feelings. Remember, there's freedom of speech. It doesn't mean you agree with the speech or any of us like the speech or we think it's appropriate, but we have to defend freedom of speech. This has no legislative purpose. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Gentlelady yields back.
Mr. Chairman.
Your time has expired. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, let me just say.
The gentleman, Mr. Mazinger's Magaziner.
All right, I'm new here. I appreciate you. Listen, this bill is much more, as we've said, than just a border security bill. There is a hodgepodge of all kinds of unrelated things that the Republican majority has put into this bill. There's a provision in there that bans Border Patrol from having electric vehicle chargers at their stations. So this bill, as it is currently before us, is a hodgepodge of all kinds of different things. And in contrast, the issue that Mr. Payne is raising gets to the safety of Border Patrol agents. Because when people do something like what we see on that coin, it runs the risk of painting with a broad brush the many good people in the CBP who are doing the right thing, in the Border Patrol, who are doing the right thing, who are not treating people with undue violence or disrespect. And this is absolutely germane to that conversation, the safety of Border Patrol agents who are doing the right thing, who do not deserve to have their reputation smeared by bad apples who are doing the wrong thing. And with that, I will yield to Mr. Payne as much time as he may consume.
I thank the gentleman, and to the gentlelady's point, this is not about freedom of speech. In that uniform, there is a code of conduct, ma'am, that is expected of those agents. So it's not their freedom of speech when they're home or at a barbecue with their friends, which is fine. But a code of conduct, where they've taken an oath. And, you know, maybe you like the depiction of people using whips on other human beings. That's freedom of speech. You're saying it's freedom of speech. You're saying it's freedom of speech. Kicking ass since 1924? Using whips on human beings. Oh, where have I heard that before? I yield back.
Sir, Mr. Thompson,
I yield to Mr.
Mr. Magaziner, will you yield?
Go ahead.
Just clarification, was it a uniformed agent that had that coin, or is it a coin that? And I just want to clarify this, because if we move on this.
Nobody came up to say, hey, Mr. Payne, look at this, what we made.
I got you, but just think of the gravity of what we're doing.
Guys, we're on my time here. We're claiming my time.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the point is, if I understand the amendment, the point is, we don't know. We're asking the commissioner to provide a report about what happened, if I understand correctly.
Right.
And with that, I'll yield my time.
Mr. Chair, can I yield? Time's been yielded. Time's been yielded. I will advise the members that under Clause 1 of Rule 17 of the House, the rules of the House, they must observe the House's standards of decorum in debate and conduct. They must speak and act respectfully and may not use disorderly words or unparliamentary language, such as words impugning the motives of their colleagues or words that are personally offensive. And I remind everybody on this committee of that. Now I will recognize the gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Guest.
Very briefly, Mr. Chairman, Secretary Mayorkas was here 2 weeks ago. Everybody in this committee had 5 minutes to ask Secretary Mayorkas any question that they wanted. And while I was not here in the entirety of that hearing, I don't recall challenge coins coming up. If you wanted to ask the Secretary about this, you had the opportunity just 2 weeks ago when he was sitting here under oath to ask him about this investigation. And every member of this committee chose to ask the Secretary other questions which were far more important than this issue. Mr. Payne, I don't know what information you have that members of CBP created, distributed these coins in question. Yes, there's a coin, and we will all admit that somebody created that. But do you have evidence that you can testify here today before this committee that members of CBP created that coin? And if you do, I will yield to you to share with the committee what evidence you have that CBP, agents of CBP, are responsible for the coin that you are referencing.
Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
If I did, what would you do?
I would like to know. If you have evidence, I would like not only this committee to know, but I would like the American public to know. You're making allegations.
If there was evidence of that, what would you do from that point on?
I would be much more likely to consider voting with your motion. And so you have before us, you have an amendment. And you're trying to convince members of both sides that this amendment is a reasonable amendment and we should support it. And so I'm asking you to share with the committee and to share with the American public what information you have that officers of the CBP created, developed, and distributed the coin in question?
We have not been able to get the type of answers that we wanted. We're not
Did you ask
satisfied.
Secretary Mayorkas when he was here?
No, that was about the budget, if I recall. It was about the budget, so I asked budget questions.
All right.
This is a markup of a bill now, and I'm asking.
And we're having
on the bill.
Mr. Guest, you have the floor. All right, so, Mr. Guest, you have the floor.
And I will yield back to you, Mr. Payne. Have you requested a briefing from Secretary Mayorkas, you, Ranking Member Thompson, any other member of the committee, and has the Secretary denied giving you a briefing on this? I would like to know that. And if so, what reason did the Secretary give for denying you that briefing request?
Sir, I brought it to the attention of my ranking member when I found it. The ranking member sent a letter to Mr. Mayorkas, and from that point, they've opened an investigation, but we have not heard back from them yet.
Okay, so this is...
So this is part of the reason I'm bringing this up now, to push for that to be resolved, sir. Is that fair?
It is, and reclaiming...
The United States spends over $50 billion, US dollars, in economic and military assistance to foreign countries. The American taxpayers send their money to countries all over the world. The question to ask is, what do these foreign countries do with our hard-earned tax dollars? The climate has been changing since the beginning of time. That is a scientific fact. The climate will continue changing. At what point, the question is at what point does that mean that every single person from all over the world can just come into America because the climate is changing? We also have hurricanes, we have tornadoes, we have earthquakes. We have our own climate disasters in the United States. Everyone in the world experiences these things. But with over $50 billion in foreign aid, you would think that these foreign these leaders and these governments would figure out a way to help their people with these problems. They could make the living conditions, their economies, their crime problems, everything they face in their countries, they could fix with our hard-earned tax dollars. Climate change is not a reason to just allow anyone and everyone to come into the United States of America. It is absolutely absurd. And you have to be, I would think it's pretty difficult for most people. Most people don't buy the climate hoax. It's a hoax because a lot of people make money on climate change. And people are not affecting climate change. You're going to tell me that back in the Ice Age, how much taxes did people pay and how many changes did governments make to melt the ice? The climate is going to continue to change. And there is no reason to just open up our borders and allow everyone in and continue to funnel over $50 billion or however many billions of dollars or trillions of dollars to foreign countries all over the world simply because they don't like the climate change. Mr. Chairman, I yield back. I yield back my time, Mr. Chairman.
Is recognized. Mr. Speaker, I yield 3 minutes to the gentlelady from the state of Georgia, Ms. Greene.
The gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to remind everyone that Republicans believe in legal immigration. As a matter of fact, we're very proud of our former First Lady, Melania Trump, who immigrated legally to the United States. But there's a clear difference in policies when we talk about border and security for the United States of America. And I think it's very important to remind my colleagues across the aisle what our oath of office actually says. We swear an oath that we will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And that is a very important oath to swear, and it's one to uphold. But this is not being upheld. In the past 2 years under this administration, we have seen nearly 5 million people cross our border, and it's unsustainable. As a matter of fact, on Monday, a record was set for border apprehensions. And then just yesterday, that record was defeated because they had even more border apprehensions. 2 records, I don't even know what today is yet. We don't have the numbers, but soon we'll know. But the clear difference between Democrats and Republicans when we talk about border security and we talk about these policies is that Democrats don't serve Americans, they serve migrants, and they serve foreign countries and their borders, but not Americans, American tax dollars, and America's border. As a matter of fact, according to the Border Patrol chief, 5 out of the 9 sectors are out of control and in the hands of the cartels. But yet the most important thing to Democrats across the aisle is attacking the Second Amendment and taking away Americans' guns because they're claiming that'll keep Americans safe from the cartels. That's insanity. Democrats serve migrants so much that they're interested in bringing more into the country. When they talk about hiring more Border Patrol agents, it's because they want Border Patrol agents to be the welcoming committee. But H.R. 2, which I strongly support, hires more Border Patrol agents and gives them bonuses so that they can do the job that they were hired to do, which is to protect our southern border. And by the way, the lives of migrants who are dying nearly every single day as they try to cross our border. You know, it's really interesting. Unfortunately, this administration and Democrats serve migrants so much more than Americans, and it seems that Biden serves any country that's willing to write them a check as long as they make it out payable to the Biden family LLCs. How about that? Title 42 lifts tomorrow.
This time has expired.
Tomorrow. I yield back.
Reserve. Tennessee reserved. Members are reminded to direct their...
Present her amendment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I come before you tonight to introduce an amendment to H.R. 467, the Halt Fentanyl Act. My amendment will reads, notwithstanding any other provision of law, any person who knowingly or intentionally imports fentanyl or any fentanyl-related substance across the southern border shall be punished by death. And I want to talk to you about why this is such an important amendment. Fentanyl, of course, we all know, is the #1 killer of Americans between the ages of 18 and 45. And it's hard to comprehend that our young people are dying today from a drug that is coming from China into Mexico and being trafficked across our southern border by the cartels. Fentanyl kills approximately 300 Americans today. In 2023 alone, CBP has seized over 17,000 pounds of fentanyl coming across the southwest border. This is enough fentanyl to kill over 3.8 billion people. That's how dangerous this drug is. Fentanyl poisoning deaths among teens accounted for 77% of adolescent overdose deaths in 2021. Fentanyl and fentanyl-related substances can be 50 to 100 times more potent than morphine. We need to talk about people that are willing to cross our border. Of course, there's many reasons coming across, but they should never, ever bring a deadly poison into our country that murders Americans. In my state alone, fentanyl-involved deaths have increased in Georgia by over 230%. In counties throughout my district, the Georgia's 14th district, from 2019 to 2022, fentanyl-involved deaths have increased by over 350%. There's examples all over the country that are similar to the ones in my district. A 16-year-old girl in Whitfield County who had never taken any illegal drugs or substances in her life took a Xanax she thought was going to help her anxiety, and within 5 minutes, she was dead because it was laced with fentanyl. We also had many overdoses throughout the months and years that the Biden administration has been in charge. And the fact that fentanyl is murdering so many people in Northwest Georgia is shocking. In November 2020, another horrifying story that happens too much. Corporal Christopher Jackson Dye, a Walker County Sheriff deputy, died after being exposed to fentanyl during an arrest. These are stories that we hear too often. But I'd like to talk with you all also, just to let you know that there are 41 capital offenses that are punishable by death. Many of these capital offenses involve murder, all types of murder. Murder related to smuggling of aliens, that is punishable by death. Murder committed during a drug-related drive-by shooting, that is punishable by death. Murder committed by the use of a firearm during a crime of violence or drug trafficking crime, that is punishable by death. Genocide is punishable by death. And one could argue, is fentanyl a type of genocide in America today? Other examples of murder that result in the death penalty. Murder for hire involving the use of interstate commerce facilities. Murder involved in racketeering offense. Willful wrecking of a train resulting in death. Bank robbery-related murder or kidnapping. Murder related to a carjacking. Murder related to rape or child molestation. Murder related to sexual exploitation of children. Murder committed during an offense against maritime navigation. Murder committed during an offense against a maritime fixed platform. Terrorist murder of a U.S. national in another country. Murder by the use of a weapon of mass destruction. And I think it is easily arguable that fentanyl is definitely a weapon of mass destruction. There's even death resulting from aircraft hijacking, of course, is punishable by death. So I think it is very, this fits the Halt Fentanyl Act, my amendment, to punish anyone who knowingly and intentionally imports fentanyl into our country that is responsible for murdering over 300 Americans every single day shall be punished by death. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank the gentlelady for her testimony. Chair has no questions. Dr. Burgess?
Thank you for bringing this to our attention. I have no questions.
The gentlelady from Pennsylvania.
Thank you. I don't have any questions, but I would like to suggest that this amendment, which applies an automatic death sentence to anyone who imports any amount of fentanyl-type drugs, so long as it comes across the southern border, is not a serious or rational response to a very serious problem. I mean, we've had, at the port in Philadelphia a couple years ago, we had 110 pounds of fentanyl seized, and it came through the port of Philadelphia. So the fact that there would be this bizarre distinction between the southern border and the other ports where 90% of the fentanyl is coming in doesn't make any sense. On the off chance this is supposed to be a serious amendment and not just clickbait for social media or campaign donations, I would offer the following points for
nothing
consideration.
is for clickbait or
my time.
campaign donation.
First of all, the amendment's unconstitutional. The Supreme Court has been clear that the death penalty is a violation of the Eighth Amendment in circumstances where death was not the immediate result of the violation in question. This law contains no such limitations as to seriousness, and what the court said there, and I think it's instructive, is that when the law punishes by death, it risks its own sudden descent into brutality, transgressing the constitutional commitment to decency and restraint. Second, it would have the absurd result that you've got a mandatory death penalty for someone who brings a pill with fentanyl across the southern border, but not for someone who imports hundreds of pounds of fentanyl anywhere else in the country. Third, it imposes a mandatory minimum sentence of death. We've had a lot of conversations, and granted, it was before you came to testify today. We've had a lot of conversations here today about the validity or the use of mandatory minimum sentences, but this would be the first and only mandatory minimum sentence in U.S. history. And None of the other offenses that you cited have a minimum sentence of death regardless of the circumstances. It's always a maximum. So I obviously can't support this amendment, and I yield back.
The gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Would you like to respond to any of that?
Yes, absolutely, I would. First of all, this is not for campaign donations or clickbait like what you said would be for campaign donations and clickbait, and I find that offensive. Secondly, the amendment reads, any person who knowingly or intentionally imports fentanyl. And I would think that you would care about 300 Americans dying every single day, especially young people. But I do agree with you, it shouldn't be just across the southern border, it should be anywhere across our border, and it should be punishable, again, by death. And as far as the death penalty being constitutional, there's 41 capital offenses that are punishable by death, so clearly, murder is punishable by death, and murdering 300 Americans every single day, knowingly and willfully, should be punished by death. Thank you.
I yield back.
The gentlelady from New Mexico is recognized.
Thank you very much. And I think that the key distinction, as pointed out in the Supreme Court opinions, was whether the importation is tied to the murder. And it's this time that is key, and I think that that's what you were pointing out. Do you want to add anything else to that?
No, just that is the point, is that there are no limitations on what's been proposed here, other than it has to be an importation across the southern border. No limitations as to harm caused, personal use, anything else. Obviously, none of us here want to encourage the importation of fentanyl, but also we don't want to encourage the descent of our laws into brutality and transgressing the constitutional commitment to decency and restraint.
Right, and as I point out, that none of those crimes that you listed have a mandatory minimum. And I really want to go back on the record and point out that under the Biden administration, we have been steadfast at attacking fentanyl. Nobody, no Democrat on this committee has said that we are in any way, supportive of any kind of fentanyl. We indeed are insistent that the problem with this bill is it doesn't go far enough. It doesn't go far enough. Our communities want us to do more with regards to enforcement. They want us to do more with regards to treatment. And that's what we need to do, is we need to do more. This bill doesn't do enough. So with that, I yield back. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Gentlelady from Minnesota is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And would you like to respond to the last comments?
Yes, thank you very much. I think if Democrats really cared about stopping fentanyl and cared at all about Americans being murdered, 300 every single day, due to Biden administration failed border policies and the national security crisis that the Biden administration has created, you all would have voted for H.R. 1, our very strong bill, and our border security package, increasing American energy, but also protecting America's border, helps America's national security. And our border security package brings back Trump's administration border policies. And Joe Biden, through executive orders, wrecked all of those. And that's why we have over 300 Americans dying every single day. You talk about what is humane and decent in treating people. That would be protecting our southern border and stopping people from knowingly and intentionally importing fentanyl that, again, is a poison that comes from China. If Joe Biden cared about saving American lives, he would be strict on China and the amount of fentanyl that they're bringing in and just handing over, selling to the Mexican cartels. If Joe Biden cared about saving American lives, 300 American lives every single day, every day. It's like a bomb going off and 300 Americans dying. Then Joe Biden would do something about the Mexican cartels who are basically running 5 out of 9 border sectors across our southern border. If Joe Biden cared at all about these 300 Americans, who, by the way, most of them are under the age of 45, then Joe Biden would absolutely be working with our speaker in this debt ceiling negotiation and making our border security package part of that negotiation. But clearly Joe Biden doesn't care at all, and the Democrats don't care at all about border security or 300 people that die every single day. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. I yield back.
Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, we all represent roughly 750,000 people, and I think we should take everybody seriously who comes before us and not question their intents or their motives or their seriousness. And that's all I had to say, and I'll yield back.
Gentleman from South Carolina is recognized. Gentleman from New York is recognized. Well, we thank you for coming, and you're excused.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there?
As a gentlewoman from Georgia, Ms. Greene, for questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In looking at the wall situation, the headline speaks for itself. DHS announces steps to protect border communities from wall construction. Yeah, I'll read that again. DHS announces steps to protect border communities from wall construction. I don't know who wrote this, but they probably should have been fired for writing that headline. That's pretty bad. Let's talk about walls. Walls are very important for most countries. There's many countries with walls. I have one article here that comes from earlier this month that says, talking about 65 countries have erected fences on their borders, also talking about walls, talking about security fears, widespread refusal to help refugees, have fueled a new spate of wall building around the world. They include Israel's apartheid wall, India's 2,500-mile fence around Bangladesh, and Morocco's huge sand berm. So many countries around the world agree that walls are important in protecting the people within the country, protecting their national security interest. I'd also like to really praise President Trump's administration that the contractors completed most of the DoD-funded border barrier bollards by the end of December 2020 as scheduled. I'm impressed with that because I own a construction company and I love to see a project completed on time. They truly did a remarkable job, and it's unfortunate it's unfinished. In my district alone, we have fentanyl deaths, and that is what really upsets me. We've had many fentanyl deaths, but the El Paso sector, with the BOR El Paso sector, has experienced a significant reduction in drug and smuggling activities in areas where the border wall system was built. Most notably in 2 separate zones, apprehensions decreased by 60% and 81% from the beginning of fiscal year 20 to the end of it. So walls work and they protect people. We have 300 Americans dying a day, so I think having a wall to protect people from deadly fentanyl is the greatest thing we can do. Ms. Cooper, CBP has been on record affirming that the border barrier has been effective and allowed CBP to readjust their agents to more pressing areas. If CBP said that the border barrier system is effective, why did DHS cancel the border wall contracts on the first day of this administration?
I certainly can't speak to the policy decisions. However, I can certainly speak to those locations in which border barrier has been deployed historically and the success with which our agents have seen a growth in capability. As you mentioned, the El Paso sector. Currently, there's a GAP project, a Gaps and Gates project, that was approved by Secretary Mayorkas that has completed 68 of those gaps and gates. An additional 61 are ongoing, some of which are in the El Paso sector. In addition, with the FY20 and FY21 appropriations that Congress provided, CBP, will be able to go back and add the system attributes to the barrier that was previously constructed by DoD in locations, again, such as El Paso, that will provide for protection.
Ms. Cooper, can you tell me, I've got the Biden administration plans here. Does any of this include, these were many of the categories of things that they used the money that was supposed to go for the wall. They turned it into things like habitat fragmentation and wildlife impacts, restoration of disturbed areas. invasive species control and monitoring, erosion concerns, low water crossing, lighting and light pollution, border barrier removal or completion, not sure what that means, impact to cultural resources. This is a list of projects that the Biden administration decided to take wall money that was set aside and contract money, and they canceled the contracts to build the wall, and they canceled building the wall, and they took this money and moved it to things like erosion control and invasive species control. So with the new wall building or project that you're talking about, are they still going to be addressing invasive species to protect our states and protect our border towns and communities? Or are they actually interested in building a legitimate wall that will stop the invasion into the United States?
As part of barrier construction, for as long as I've been working on barrier programs, which is about 15 years, we have had a long-running relationship with the Department of Interior to ensure that environmental resources are considered as a part of that barrier construction. What those types of projects that you just referenced are not new to this type of work, and in fact have been ongoing with every border project that I've been involved in.
Well, will protecting the land from invasive species, will that save the 300 Americans that are dying daily from fentanyl at all? I don't think so. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gentlewoman yields. The gentleman from California. Gentleman yields. Gentlewoman from Georgia, Ms. Greene, is recognized for question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Vitiello, I would like to thank you for your service as our former U.S. Border Patrol chief. I really appreciate the job you did there. And I would also like to apologize to you on behalf of the committee for the accusation that just came against you. You were confirmed in a bipartisan Senate, so just wanted to extend that to you.
Thank you very much. I had a good run in government. I got cleared through the committee and was very close to a full confirmation, so thank you.
Yes. And also I would like to point out, it was said on this committee earlier that the border wall was an anti-American movement. That was said by a Democrat member earlier, and I think that is an egregious thing to say. The border wall was, being built to protect our country, protect our border, help our Border Patrol agents. I think the most anti-American moment in this country was when a giant fence was erected around the Capitol and left there for months, and our U.S. military was brought in and forced to sleep on the floor in parking garages for months at a time. I think that's an anti-American moment. But I'll move on. The CBP-1 app.
Would the gentlelady yield?
No, she will not. I will not.
All right.
The CBP-1 app is now allowing the orderly invasion of 1,500 illegal aliens per day into our country. And this is a serious problem. Mr. Johnson, as you live, you said, is it 3 miles from the border?
Yes, ma'am.
Has the CBP-1 app, with its orderly invasion, sending people to ports where they can make an appointment in their convenient time and choose a port of entry where they show up, and then they're allowed to come into the United States at the expense of the United States taxpayer, has this slowed down or stopped people from crossing the border and coming onto your land?
I can't speak to how the app's really helped because up until just a few months ago, I wasn't even aware of this app, but we still have traffic coming through. It has slowed since Title 42 was lifted, but it has never stopped completely.
So it's never stopped. So people are still crossing the border illegally onto your land. This headline, I read it on our earlier panel. DHS announces steps to protect border communities from wall construction. This was an actual headline from 2021, April 30th, 2021. Did the wall construction or the border wall, did you feel threatened? Was your safety threatened by the wall?
It was quite the opposite. We were so glad to see it. It was, like I say, an answer to our prayers because that was going to be some safety and security we had never seen before.
That's what I thought. It seems like it was a very good thing. It was actually helping. We had a Democrat amendment on this committee to disarm Americans 200 miles into the United States, taking away their guns. That would be you. It would take away your guns if that were made law. Do you think taking away your guns would help keep you and your family safe from the people that are constantly invading, coming across the border onto your land? Would taking away your guns help keep you safe?
Absolutely not. In our area, we are so rural. The only law enforcement we have is Border Patrol. Sheriff's departments stretched thin. Response times are well over an hour. You have to rely on yourself for your own safety.
So the Second Amendment, your right to bear arms, is your first line of self-defense.
It's not just a luxury, it's a necessity.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. In my district, Georgia's 14th district, which is in northwest Georgia, this is far away from Texas, far away from the border. The fentanyl-involved deaths have increased in Georgia alone, have increased by over 230%. But in my district, fentanyl-involved deaths have increased by over 350%. And this looks to be, it has to be a direct result of the Biden administration's policies. And you can't help but to wonder, what would it be like in my district? What would it be like in Georgia? What would it be like in the rest of the country if 300 Americans weren't dying every single day from fentanyl? So Mr. Vitiello, I'm sorry if I keep saying it wrong, I apologize. Would it be fair to describe the border wall, had it been completed, or at least what we have, as a force multiplier for Border Patrol in areas where it was installed?
100%. Where you have that barrier, you have an anchor for all of the technology and all the operations that need to occur in that place in the world. And so when you control that area, that gives agents more opportunity to find and rescue people that are in distress, to find and rescue people who are being trafficked, to stop fentanyl from coming into the United States. It's a terrible situation that we're in. We talked a little bit about smuggling through these areas. All smuggling is organized, whether it's narcotics or people. And these cartels are being enriched because the pipeline that was opened up at the beginning of this administration is still open, regardless of CBP1, regardless of the number of people, the reduced apprehensions, the reduced encounters. There's still thousands and thousands of people coming to the border every 24 hours. And having the right kind of infrastructure, having enough and sufficient agents, well-trained, and having the technology to support them is still important and always will be. I did this work for a long time. The American people have demanded a secure border for the entirety of my career, most acutely after 9/11, but that desire still continues, and it hasn't been addressed in a sufficient way. There was a lot of progress made in the last administration. That's all been ripped down now.
Thank you. I yield, Mr.
Thank you, ma'am. I just had two quick comments. One was, it was surprising for me to hear that suggestion that putting up a fence around the Capitol after the invasion and raid that led to the deaths of several police officers was more dramatic or less dramatic than the actual invasion itself. So
walls work, apparently.
Hopefully
reclaiming my time. The time is for Mr. Ivy, not Ms. Greene.
Yeah, hopefully we don't have Sinaloa trying to come into the Capitol. But what we had happen on January 6th was sufficiently bad, and I appreciate the Department of Justice prosecuting the 700 plus that have done so far. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In looking at the wall situation, the headline speaks for itself. DHS announces steps to protect border communities from wall construction. Yeah, I'll read that again. DHS announces steps to protect border communities from wall construction. I don't know who wrote this, but they probably should have been fired for writing that headline. That's pretty bad. Let's talk about walls. Walls are very important for most countries. There's many countries with walls. I have one article here that comes from earlier this month that says, talking about 65 countries have erected fences on their borders, also talking about walls talking about security fears, widespread refusal to help refugees, have fueled a new spate of wall building around the world. They include Israel's apartheid wall, India's 2,500-mile fence around Bangladesh, and Morocco's huge sand berm. So many countries around the world agree that walls are important in protecting the people within the country, protecting their national security interest. This administration and Democrats proved to us they believe in walls because they erected one around the Capitol when they felt threatened after January 6th. A wall at the southern border would stop drugs from flowing in. That is a fact. Walls work. We know they work. We lock our doors and windows at night inside when we go inside our homes. We protect our children with locked doors and walls. They work. A wall would be the best way to stop drugs from coming in and reduce the amount of drugs. I think that would be the wisest way to go, don't you?
Congressman, thank you. I went down there several times. The last time I saw gapes in the border barrier system.
But the Biden administration has stopped construction. There's gaping holes. There's broken fences. There's portions that don't work because the Biden administration has stopped construction and stopped funding.
There's 68 that have been already fixed, and there's 62 more on the way to be fixed. We still have tunnels to deal with. We have drones to deal with. So I think what we can do coming together on this is to build the best barrier protections possible. That includes those barriers.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Goop. I agree. It's extremely important. I also proudly serve on the Homeland Security Committee. This is an important committee. We have an invasion, a daily invasion at our southern border that the President of the United States pretends does not exist because his policies not only enable it, they create it, okay? This is human trafficking, child trafficking, human sex trafficking, child sex trafficking, drug trafficking. As a matter of fact, it's so bad on the southern border, the cartels control virtually 5 out of the 9 southern border sectors. And that was told to us by the Border Patrol chief. Now that is a terrifying thing to learn about. This is such a problem, and I really miss President Trump and his policies. That's where we had a secure border. So I serve on the Homeland Committee, and I'm proud of our bill we passed. H.R. 2 was a great America First border policy bill. And this is something we hope to get signed into law, but unfortunately, we know that won't happen until we take back the White House, right? Now, the third committee I serve on is the Oversight Committee. This committee work is extremely important. We investigate waste, fraud, and abuse, and I don't think we have enough time in our lifetime to actually investigate the amount of waste, fraud, and abuse. We don't. We're $32 trillion in debt, so that tells you how much waste, fraud, and abuse there has been by the federal government and everything that has been funded, and it's unreal to me. But on the Oversight Committee, this is where we're investigating Joe Biden directly. We're investigating Joe Biden, and the amount of evidence that we have been able to produce would have had him impeached long ago. And so my frustration is great. I'm ready day one, and we will be voting on an impeachment inquiry as soon as we get back to Washington in September.
I now recognize Ms. Greene for her 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for bringing this excellent panel of witnesses before us. While Democrats on our committee want to widen the road and create a bigger invasion into the United States of America, enabling human trafficking, cartels making over $150 billion a year on selling little girls, little boys, and selling people into the United States and selling drugs. Republicans are committed to securing our border, Mr. Chairman, and firing the people whose failed policies are killing Americans every single day. I want to remind everyone, we serve the United States of American citizens, not the rest of the world. That needs to be made clear. You need to remember your oath of office, people. Ms. Snodgrass, I'm very sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
My children are 25, 23, and 19. I can't imagine what you go through, losing a
I
child.
can tell you that those cartels are targeting your children. They're targeting military-aged youth in this country from China and Mexico. They're targeting your children.
That's right. They're targeting everyone's children. Ms. Snodgrass, we had another witness come before our committee. Mrs. Rebecca Kiesling testified before this committee in March of this year. She lost her 2 sons to fentanyl poisoning like you lost your son. She lost them in 2020. And she passionately called out the current administration for its pathetic border security policies that aren't securing our border, opening our border, that made the fentanyl crisis even worse. However, she was laughingly mocked by the President of the United States, Joe Biden, for her criticism of the ongoing border crisis because that fentanyl they took came during the last administration. How did Joe Biden's comments when he laughed at her sit with parents like you who lost a child to fentanyl poisoning? How did that make you feel, Ms. Snodgrass?
Thank you for the question. I was here with Rebecca that day. And the next day, when that comment was made, she was devastated. All of us in the fentanyl family groups were devastated by that comment. It's unconscionable that this is not recognized as a red, white, and blue issue. This are American children dying on American soil. No one knows what their voting history is when they're sold a drug. She went underground for a month after that. We all will never forget. We will never forget the disrespect paid to us, and particularly Rebecca lost 2 sons. We'll never forget it. And to think that this could be talked about in terms of who died on whose watch is, there's no explanation for that. This country is being targeted. It's a war being won, in my opinion, on American soil. They're killing 112,000 Americans. That's war. We need drug terrorists to be declared as terrorists. Fentanyl is a weapon of mass destruction. This is a war being waged. We are not standing up to it. We need to turn the tables and take this war to them. Take this war to them instead of us responding poorly, in my opinion. Take this to them. Turn the tables.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And I'm very sorry for your loss. Mr. Gellerant, I'm sorry, I can't see your...
That's all right, Gallant, sorry.
Gallant. You know, I find it so hypocritical of you to listen to you basically mock former President Trump's administration, attacking the policies of testing for DNA, keeping children safe while they are ensuring that they are with a parent, while this administration, under Secretary Mayorkas, under Joe Biden, this administration, Democrats have lost over 85,000 children in our country. We cannot find them. We cannot find them. And you know what? Here, listen to this. This is so disturbing to me. The very fact that this administration sent more than 100 children to the same address in Austin, Texas, while other Texas addresses received 44 and 25 minors respectively, that is outrageous. That is outrageous. And I don't have a question for you. I just want you to understand that there is no criticism of the former administration and the ridiculous numbers and the so-called separating children from their parents. No, that's called keeping them safe. Ms. Cantu, wouldn't you say that that's what your husband was able to do under the former President Trump's administration, was keep children safe?
Yes, ma'am.
And how does your husband feel now, and all of the brave men and women in the Border Patrol? How does it affect their mentality? How does it affect their marriages? How does it affect their families when they have their hands tied behind their backs? They're not allowed to protect these children. They watch regular Americans get fired every single day, but yet we can't impeach Secretary Mayorkas because that's impeachment theater. How has that affected Border Patrol agents?
It's overall beyond frustrating. These Border Patrol agents carry that weight with them every day. The fact that they cannot comply with the oath that they swore on the day that they graduated from their academy. This is a flag that classes wave in the academy in Artesia. This is the promise that they made. This represents the promise, the oath, the ability to protect this country, and that's their frustration. They no longer have that. They're no longer allowed to practice the laws that they were taught. Nothing even special. It's just the basic books.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wish we had another round with these witnesses.
We do, if you want to stick around. Okay. We did say at the beginning that we would allow a second round of questioning, so.
Okay, I've hit it. Good morning, everybody. Wanted to come on and talk to you about what's happening and why I'm not in Washington today, why most members of Congress left town yesterday, and why we're not doing anything for the American people. So September 30th, I'm sure you've seen all over the news, September 30th is the funding deadline that Congress has to finish all of our appropriation bills, finish our budget, and fund the government. And we aren't getting that done. And it's very frustrating to all of us, every single one of us, that we're not getting that done. But I'm particularly frustrated today. We went home for August recess. We should have stayed in Washington working to get our appropriation bills done, but we didn't. We went on August recess, and that's when we're supposed to go back to our districts and get work done in our districts. That's what we did. But we should have stayed in Washington and funded the government and gotten all the work done, hammering out the details. But we have 12 separate appropriation bills. We only had one pass before we went home in August. Now we have 11 left. Well, yesterday, in case you didn't see the news or don't know what happened, while President Zelensky from Ukraine was in Washington begging for more American people's taxpayer dollars, while our border is being invaded at record levels, and while the Biden administration has welcomed everyone to America illegally, we were not able to get our bills done. So yesterday they decided to bring the defense bill to the floor. And I want to be very clear with all of you. All week long, as a matter of fact, all year long, I have told every single one of my colleagues, I have told the press, I have told my district, I've posted on social media 1,000 times, I am not voting for one single penny to go to a war in Ukraine. I'm America first. I work for the United States of America. I work for the American people. Our border is being overrun, and we have a president in the United States and an administration that is happy and fine with open borders and is bringing in more illegal aliens into America than we can possibly handle. New York is being crushed. Texas has been crushed for a long time. California, Arizona, Georgia, Alaska, you name it, all over the country, these illegal aliens are coming into our country. So they bring a defense bill to the floor yesterday that had $300 million for Ukraine in it. I told them all week long, I'm not voting for $300 million for Ukraine. Take the money out, put it in a separate bill if you want to, and then I can vote no, other members can vote no, and if you people want to vote to send more money, more American tax dollars to a war in Ukraine, then you vote yes for it. But I'm not doing it. And they didn't listen. They didn't respect me. They didn't respect other members that were saying the same thing. So they brought the defense bill, the defense appropriation bill, which, by the way, is largely a very good bill. A bill that I want to vote for without the Ukraine money. I would love to vote for that bill without the Ukraine money. But no, they didn't take it out. So they brought it to the floor for a vote, and I voted no to the rule. I voted no to the rule. And so guess what? It didn't pass. The rule did not pass, and the bill couldn't be brought to the floor. So we couldn't even pass the appropriations bill. And then they called me and said, Marjorie, will you vote for it if we take it out? I said, that's what I have been saying all week long. All week long, I have been saying, take it out and I will vote for it. Take the money out and I will vote for it. But they didn't respect me, and they didn't respect other people, so they didn't respect the American people. And they still brought it to the rule to the floor anyways. So here we are. So I'm at home. Other members of Congress are at home. Some are in Washington. And we're again not getting anything done. And we have the September 30th funding deadline coming up. Now here's my issue. This is what I don't understand. Just because there are members in our conference that are in red districts and they really want to send money to Ukraine, but they don't want their districts to know that they voted to send money to Ukraine, or they don't want to get beat up about it, doesn't mean that I have to commit the sin with them. You see, I don't have to vote yes and cover up the garbage, the America Last garbage that they want to do, just to help them get by with it. And that's where I'm really angry this morning. So I don't really care what anyone has to say at this point. You sent me home yesterday. You disrespected my views. You disrespected America's views. You disrespected everybody that is sick and damn tired of funding foreign wars while our border is being invaded. Guess what? There's some news this morning. Here's how bad it is. Not only are thousands and thousands of people flooding in to Eagle Pass, Texas, the Biden DHS, this is news out, I just read this, they let 200,000 illegal immigrants, they didn't let them in the country by a train, like you saw the videos of the trains coming through Mexico. No, that wasn't it. They didn't come up through buses that the cartels own, coming to our border and then running across the border. No. 200,000 flew into our country. They came by plane. They bought a plane ticket from their home country and they flew into 43 cities. And guess what? Here's the kicker. You're not going to believe this. It happened on an app that the Biden administration has. They were able to come in our country illegally by registering on a Biden administration app. That's how they did it. This is how damn bad it is. We have people coming in, planes, trains, automobiles, and boats, illegally invading America. And we have members of Congress that are so dead set on a war in Ukraine, which doesn't even border our country, which is across the Atlantic Ocean, is over in Europe, that they refuse to take $300 million out of our defense bill. No, we can't address the border situation. So yesterday we have Zelensky in the Capitol, standing in the Capitol in Washington, D.C., and they had to bring that bill to the floor with $300 million in it. And they wanted me to vote for it. Hell no. And I'm glad I'm back home because I don't really want to talk to anybody right now. This is pathetic. This is the most America Last pathetic thing I've ever seen. And I'm furious about it. I'm so mad about it. I'm standing here going live on Twitter telling the world. I hope everyone knows how sick and damn tired I am of it. I have helped. I have donated. I have fought for the Republican agenda. I have stood by everyone. But when it comes to this, I've told them all year long, I'm not voting for your stupid war with Russia. There should be a peace treaty in that country right now. I'm not voting to murder more people in one of the most corrupt countries on earth. Put America first. Our country is being invaded. We can't even impeach Mayorkas. Can you believe that? We can't even impeach Mayorkas. We should be impeaching Mayorkas. We should be impeaching Biden over the border. Can't even do that. But we have members of Congress, Republicans, with very red districts, that are so dead set on they got to send money to Ukraine, they don't want it taken out of the defense bill. That's where it sits. Everybody's going to be mad at me for saying all of this out loud to the public, but I really do not care. Let me explain why. I got elected from this district, the one I'm standing in right now in Georgia, Georgia's 14th district. And when I walk out of my house and I go anywhere I go in my district, you know what they say to me? Thank you, Marjorie, thank you. You know what else happens elsewhere in the country? They say, thank you, Marjorie. Americans are sick and tired of the America Last Washington, D.C. federal government machine that serves the rest of the world and tells Americans to go F themselves. And then they tell Americans to pay for it. Enough of this garbage. It needs to end right now. Here, I'll give you another little story. Yesterday, when I was getting on the airplane in Washington, getting on my flight and I sat down in my seat, another member of Congress came up to me and was mad at me for voting no against the rule on the defense bill. So I very loudly told him in front of everyone on the plane, if you want to vote for it, put it in a separate bill. You vote for the money to Ukraine. I'm not voting for it. Absolutely not voting for it. I don't care what it's in. I'm not voting for it. Not voting for it. And when he went by, guess what? Everyone around me said, thank you. I support you. Thank you. And then a couple of people got up and took pictures with me. So for those of you in Washington that are so thick-headed and so America Last that you think that we have to give in and vote for crap in these big bills, because the September 30th deadline is coming, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't give a damn. We should have been in Washington getting our work done weeks ago. We should be in Washington right now getting our work done. And you want to know something else? You should respect members of Congress like me, because we're working for the American people. And when we say we are not voting for money to Ukraine, and we don't care if Zelensky's standing in the Capitol in his stupid green jumpsuit and he can't wear a suit and tie as he comes and begs for money from us, then you don't respect the American people. I've absolutely had enough. Absolutely had enough. I shouldn't have to do this video. I shouldn't have had to vote no yesterday. I told all of you the entire week. I told you in conference. I told the press. I told you to your face in meetings. I posted it on social media. I told you nonstop. I'm not voting for this. Secondly, we have a weaponized government. A weaponized government. The Department of Justice is using its power to politically persecute its political enemies. And I'm not voting for that either. I am not voting for that. So if you want my yes vote, I've told you the entire time, not voting for the weaponized government. I am not voting for COVID garbage of any kind, mask, vaccines, new vaccines, any of it. And I am not voting for a war in Ukraine in any bill of any kind. I don't care how great the bill is. I am not voting for it. If you people want to fund the war in Ukraine, do it on your own. Don't ask me to help out.
Thank you, sir.
The gentleman yields. I now recognize the gentlelady from Georgia, Ms. Greene, for 5 minutes of questioning.
Secretary Mayorkas, I want you to look at these innocent Americans. Do you see them?
I do, Congresswoman.
They are dead. They're from Dalton, Georgia, in my district. They're dead because a 17-year-old, likely affiliated with the cartels, was smuggling illegal aliens into our country in Texas, breaking our laws, and this happens every single day in our country. Earlier this week, 8 Republicans joined the Democrats and protected your job. But I want you to know, you have a short time coming. You can honorably resign, or we are going to impeach you, and it's happening very, very soon. Mr. Ray, do you remember on October 18th when the Capitol...
Today, Marjorie
Marjorie Taylor Greene and I, we came into Congress together. We've been friends for several years now. We both sit on the Homeland Security Committee, and we actually sit next together in that committee. And we've got to know each other. We've got to know each other very well. I actually hosted Marjorie in my district several months back. So not only has she been a leader on border security and holding this administration accountable for the failures, she's also seen it firsthand, has heard from people firsthand, and sadly, things are only getting worse. Nothing is changing, and we can't allow this to be the new norm. You know, last week, Marjorie's constituents, the Lermas, were killed. American citizens were killed along the border as they were traveling for vacation to see their family members. And this happens every single week. Just a few months ago, in Ozona, Texas, also in my district, the Tampungas, grandmother and her 7-year-old granddaughter, Emmy and Cope, were traveling back from a play date, and they were killed in a high-speed chase due to this border crisis. I mention that because when we talk about the numbers, when you talk about 240,000 people coming over illegally for the month of October, historic numbers, this is what that turns into. The lawlessness and the chaos turns into Americans dying, not to mention the fentanyl and everything else that's going on. And sadly, Washington and other places have become numb to the chaos. We are not numb to it. We're not ever going to be numb to it. And while it's unfortunate that that Representative Taylor Greene's resolution didn't get over the finish line last night, we have to make sure that we never stop fighting to hold this administration accountable. It is incumbent on House Republicans. We are the last line of defense, and it can't just be words. There have to be meaningful solutions. Marjorie and I have worked very closely to get H.R. 2. This is the strongest border security package passed out of the House, and we're pushing hard to get the Senate to act and pass some meaningful border security solutions into law. This cannot happen. Every single week, you see these photos. These are innocent Americans that were just living their lives like any of us, are now gone, and they can never be replaced because of this border crisis. This starts here by fixing it here in Washington. I want to thank again my good friend Marjorie Taylor Greene for her leadership, for constant pushing on the issue and holding people accountable and never backing down. No matter win, lose, or draw, she's never going to back down. I'm honored to stand beside her today and continue to fight on border security until we get it done. With that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mark.
I'd like to thank you personally, Tony. It's an honor to work with you. And Tony has hosted me in his district. As a matter of fact, Tony has hosted most all of us in your district. Tony Gonzalez represents the district in Texas that has Eagle Pass. I would call that the front door to the invasion, the open door invasion that the Biden administration keeps going every single day, and Secretary Mayorkas leads it. He breaks our laws, the laws of our country, and allows our country to be invaded by terrorists, criminals, cartels, unknown people from over 160 countries across the world. This is what is happening to America, and these ordinary, regular Americans you see here on these posters are the victims of Secretary Mayorkas' willful breaking of our laws and keeping Biden's open border policies going. And our people have had enough, absolutely had enough. These are the numbers. We just got them out today. They've been reported. The numbers for October, 240,988 migrant encounters at the southern border during the month of October. Tony, I would bet many of them are in your district. Yes. And that makes this the highest October on record, the highest ever on record. CBP also reported 13 Border Patrol arrests of people on the FBI terror watch list in October. 12 at the southern border, likely quite a few of them in Tony's district, 1 at the northern border. But I would remind everyone, we have over 1.8 million gotaways on Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas' watch.
This is his failure to Americans. How many of those 1.8 million gotaways are terrorists? I would argue thousands of them. But the problem is we don't know. Now here's what else is so devastating. 44,000 migrants were paroled into the U.S. at ports of entry through the Biden administration's use of the CBP-1 app. This is the way that migrants go on their smartphones as they're coming up through Mexico and just make an appointment to come into our country and be transported by buses, airplanes, and sent to hotel rooms all over the country on the taxpayer's dime. We are so fed up with this. How many more Americans have to die? How many more families will never see their loved ones again, like these people you see in these photos? Now here we are, two members of Congress that serve on the Homeland Committee, and as Tony stated, we sit next to each other. We have heard the heart-wrenching stories from witness after witness. Parents whose children have been murdered by Chinese fentanyl that comes into our country through the cartels at the southern border. We have watched them weep. We have mourned with them. 300 Americans die every single day. But think about this. 8 Republicans last night voted with Democrats to shelf and kill my articles of impeachment against Secretary Mayorkas. 8 Republicans. How many more people have to die before 8 Republicans can decide to have the courage to vote yes for impeachment against Alejandro Mayorkas? This cannot go on. I've lost 2 constituents last week. These people were just recently in the last month or so. But this happens every day at the border, and they are invisible. Congress is tone deaf. We don't need more hearings. We don't need more strongly worded letters. We don't need more posts and social media posts. We don't need any more of that. Americans are fed up with it. We need impeachment. And that is the tool that our founders gave us in the Constitution. I am particularly outraged at 4 of the 8 Republicans that voted to shelve these articles of impeachment, voted to kill them, because 4 of them serve on the Judiciary Committee. And I want you to know that my articles of impeachment have been in the Judiciary Committee for 6 months sitting on a shelf. So these 4 Judiciary members, Republicans, voted to send them back up on the shelf where they will never be picked up and see the light of day, marked up in a committee and move forward. It's outrageous. And I have to say, one of them is Darrell Issa, and he said that I lack maturity. Well, I want you to know, it takes maturity to vote for impeachment. It takes seriousness to vote for impeachment, because we aren't going to stand by and watch our constituents get murdered by cartel members who are smuggling illegal aliens illegally into our country. It takes maturity to act, and we are ready to act. We are fed up with it. Now, here's the deal. Americans are fed up with it, and Congress has to stop being tone deaf. Tony and I could put the numbers to you on and on and on, but the biggest thing that we want is we want to see action from our conference. We want to see boldness and courage among Republicans to do the right thing for the American people so that no more Americans die from the Biden administration's open border policy that violates our laws and our Constitution. Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas must be impeached, and that's why I will reintroduce my articles of impeachment in a privilege resolution once again on the House floor, and I dare those 8 Republicans to shelf them again. It's time to do something about it. We must move forward. Tony, I thank you so much. I really thank your courage and how you represent your district and fight on this issue. So I want to keep working with you on this. Thank you. And we can take questions if anybody has them.
What's the next step for impeaching Mayorkas? When do you intend to refile those articles?
That would depend on our floor schedule. So I've got to see what our floor schedule is and what our votes are.
And those 8 members who voted against, they said they wanted to wait till the process and the investigation to complete itself in Homeland Security. What's your response to that?
I think that's a weak excuse. The process is a vote. That's how you impeach someone. We don't need to prove the numbers. We have the stories. They're proven right here. And they're proven every single day. 300 Americans die every single day. How many more Americans do they want dead before they're willing to push that button? I can assure you their phone lines are being lit up today. Their names are all over social media. Their constituents know how they voted, and they should have never done it. They shouldn't have done it. And you know, voting is our job. That's our job, and our record is public. And no one can get mad if people are upset about our votes, because you have to stand by your vote. But like I said, articles of impeachment, mine, and there's others on Mayorkas, have been sitting on the shelf in the Judiciary Committee. So they can't argue that they want to work the process when 4 of them serve on the Judiciary Committee and have not picked up articles of impeachment, moved them forward, and voted them out of their committee. That's an excuse that I'm not going to buy, and I don't think the American people are buying either.
I have a question for Congressman Gonzalez. So some of your primary challengers have come out and said you're now talking more openly about border security because of re-election issues. What's your response to that?
I've been in Congress Marjorie and I have been in Congress almost 3 years now. It's our second term. My very first bill was the Security First Act, literally days after I was elected. And here we are 3 years later. Nothing has changed. It's only gotten worse. And what's happening is Americans are now being killed on a daily basis. So this is well beyond politics. This is well beyond a party. This is about our country. It's about how do we make this end. In my district, which is 800 miles of the southern border, stretches from San Antonio to El Paso, nearly half of the overall southern border. What you're seeing here, these Americans that are killed, it's happening every single week. I'll tell you about the Lerma family. I get a call from the sheriff of Zavala County about an hour after it occurred. He goes, Tony, there was another car accident. This time, 2 Americans were killed. And I go, okay, what happened? He walks me through it. They were coming from Georgia on their way to Mexico. And here we are trying to help that family bury their loved ones. This has to end. And this has to end with us. And once again, I give a lot of credit to Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene going, you know what, enough's enough. We are going forward. I'm not going to stop. We're not going to let up. We were really only four votes short of passing this thing. I mean, it was right there. And we cannot, House Republicans cannot be the party of do nothing. The American people are counting on us to make this crisis stop. You know, maybe we don't get it all. Maybe in 2023 we get a chunk, and then when we win back the presidency, we come back in 2025 and re-implement the Trump policies that worked. But I've been very clear. My record's been very clear. I've hosted over 100 members of Congress. I've done over 20 different congressional delegations. My positions have not changed from day one.
Thank you very much, everyone. We appreciate it.